heart of Anthem is the concept of our world, my story. The unique combination of a dynamic, ever-changing world and a powerful personal story. In our world, you band together with friends for epic adventures across a vast, shared landscape teeming with danger. The world narrative advances for your whole team. Together, you'll confront countless enemies, those who threaten to take control of the Anthem, as well as ancient beasts. And you'll get further into our world by taking on explosive missions offered by agents who need your help. These missions take you deep into the heart of Anthem, while also developing the personal stories of each agent.
Trust me, I'm a person you want to know.
Outside of the battles, there's free play. A chance for you to explore solo or with friends. Uncover answers to your questions about Anthem, and find powerful artifacts that could lead you to victory down the road. Back within the safety of Fort Tarsis is where my story begins. This is your chance to develop a richly personal narrative, where your choices have consequences. In this bustling trader town, you'll develop bonds with your pit crew, who can help you prepare for future battles. They're the people in the world who have your back. And as your relationships develop, you'll learn about their pasts and the future they hope to see. Fort Tarsis is ripe for exploration as well. You may even encounter shadowy figures with questionable character. It all depends on the decisions you make. This is real-time storytelling, a reinvention of personal narrative in a multiplayer game. As a freelancer, you are the bridge between the heroic adventures discovered in our world and the personal journey that unravels in my story. And ultimately, the key to the fate of everyone.
Good, we're live. Javelins, freelancers, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to a special Anthem cast. I am, of course, one of your hosts, Ogaz, but joining me on the other side of the world is a man who will buy every version of Anthem that is available, and I mean that quite literally. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he has all versions pre-ordered at GameStop, but I don't wonder if it actually would pick all of them up. You have a tendency, Binary, of doing this, don't you, where you pre-order things and you don't pick them up.
That's actually very true, yeah. I call it saving for games for the future, because at least I can trade it in.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm very good. Tired, actually. I was doing a 6-hour drive today, but it's nice to be home with the family. And even better to be doing a podcast. It's one of my favourite hobbies.
It isn't. What was that, sorry?
But I'm good. How are you?
I'm splendid. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I've just dropped the kids at school. I just finished. I just graduated from my master's, my MBA last week. So I'm, yeah. Thank you. So I'm in a pretty good place right now. Anthem news is pumping. The alpha, of course, has been alpha state has been confirmed by Bioware, and of course, I thought it would be a very, very special cast, and of course, it is a very special cast today to welcome our very special guest, a man who, when he is not playing Diablo, he is saying absolutely. And when he's not saying absolutely, he is testing Anthem, I suspect, with many Anthem moments to talk about today. Of course, we are talking about no other than game director for Anthem, Jonathan Warner. John Warner, how are you, sir?
Hello. I, too, am spectacular.
Good. I like that.
Yeah, it's good. It is chilly here in Edmonton, as you would expect, but that's what fall is for, apparently.
Awesome. Awesome.
Oh, it came, but it didn't stay. Thank God.
It gets pretty deep out that way, right?
That's right. We had like 2 days of fall, and then right into winter. But we're back into fall now, so it's all good.
That is good.
It it's a different world. I'm sitting here in winter, winter, spring, and I've got like 75 Fahrenheit. Like, life's tough down here.
Life is difficult down there.
It's really hard. But to be fair, we do live on the bottom arse end of the world, so we have to cope with that too.
Yeah, and poisonous things. You got lots of poisonous things.
Absolutely. Oh dear, I've done it.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Now I'm going to say this, Binary. We're just talking about this, but I've started to say this at work, and I'm that guy that says 100%. You know, when someone goes blah 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 blah, and I'll go 100%.
Yeah.
Recently, I've started to say absolutely, and I cannot quantify it other than you.
I like
So
it.
thanks a lot.
I like it. It's going to go viral pretty soon, everyone. Absolutely.
Well, it says a lot about someone if you can talk in absolutes.
I prefer not to talk in absolutes, but I guess it's a tick I've picked up.
Member of the SIF. Yeah. But anyhow, as I said, it's a pleasure for you to join us, and it's a very special time for us to be able to talk about news and of course some questions about Anthem. But we're more interested with a few more things before we get there. In fact, we've got some fast, quick-fire questions for you, John. All you have to do, Byron and I will just alternate on these. I think all you have to do is pick one. That's all. It's a pretty easy game.
All right,
straightforward. I'm going to start off with the first: Mario or Sonic?
Sonic.
Ooh. Good choice.
Oh, blasphemy.
Or Toy Story.
Toy Story.
Ooh.
Very decisive.
Now, of course, you've worked on both franchises historically.
I have.
And you went with Toy Story. Fair enough. The Mass Effect 3 DLC, Citadel or Leviathan?
Ooh. Citadel.
That's bias, isn't it? I mean,
it is. It's completely biased.
Leviathan was the first one, wasn't it? And I actually quite enjoyed that. It was short, but quite enjoyable.
I enjoyed
the
it.
Deep sea monster. Binary.
Favorite Bioware game and why?
Oh man, now you're really punching. That's low.
Cool, you don't see the rest yet.
Let's see here. Knights of the Old Republic.
Yes.
Yeah, that game really captured. That really captured a lot of my spirit. I loved it. I played it while I was working at Microsoft, and just thought, man, these guys make amazing games. I want to go work for those guys.
Really? So that's what drove you to your Microsoft days?
Yeah. While I was at Microsoft, I was playing KOTOR on the original Xbox, and that was a very cool experience. I really dug that.
And that's what
because you were
Bioware.
Yeah, well, it's when I knew I really wanted to work for Bioware. I had played, of course, honestly, I'd played all of the Bioware games. Starting at Shattered Steel, I actually had bought and played that before Baldur's Gate.
Wow.
So these guys were already on my radar, but yeah, KOTOR was a thing for me.
Shattered Steel, that's the mech game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The intro for that game was epic. I remember that.
I remember it very fondly. I haven't gone back and looked at it lately. I imagine that, as with all things, it would be somewhat tarnished. So I'm leaving it there in the palace of my mind to just enjoy that.
The cinematic age as well, obviously. So that actually, because that was fantastic then, and it's actually quite a good watch. But that was the first time I felt like I was part of like the ramp up, the opening cinematic for that game. I was like, holy, I'm part of something. Let's go.
Nah, cool. I loved it too.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And next on the chopping block, we had favorite game in general, just general game, any game.
Favorite game in general.
It's Diablo.
It's Diablo. I love Diablo, all three of them with all of their expansion packs. It's true. That is one of my favorite games of all time. Zelda, original Legend of Zelda, is a huge influence on me. It's got to sit in my top three.
Oh, good choice. Good choice.
Yes.
Bonner.
Back to Anthem. Is it Interceptor or Storm?
Right now, currently, it's still Storm.
Oh,
we'll see what happens.
You've been holding on to that puppy for a while. I remember the interview with Alex. You were back at E3. You were talking about Storm.
Yeah, I love the Storm. I've always loved the Storm. Everything from its aesthetics to its powers. its gear, its traversal. I'm enthralled with it. I love it. But you have to be careful, right? Certain circumstances do not dictate that you take the storm out.
All right, here's one for you. Mark Dara or Mike Gamble?
Oh, no. Pass.
Oh, come on. All right, let's put it this way. Who would you go for dinner with?
Oh, well, Mike has great taste in restaurants. I always do.
Oh.
But Mark always makes me laugh, so we have a great time together. It's a possible question. You're asking me an impossible question.
Yeah. Politically answered very well. Someone's done political science in government.
Possibly.
Did you? I remember they had a conversation on Twitter where I think Mike was tweeting about Mark constantly tweeting replying to people in the restaurant, and then I think Mike had a realization that he's also doing it.
It was a true meta moment. I think we were this close to having the universe collapse in on us and eat us all.
Awesome, very good. Well, look, I thank you for playing our warm-up game.
Yes.
It's good to get to know some of the background, and I think the things that influence and inspire and create engagement for developers, because we rarely get to see that side of that conversation. You guys are, importantly engaged in developing Anthem and working closely in each of your centers. So it's always a privilege to hear some insights.
No, it's always fun to talk about this stuff. I can do it forever. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Binary. So we were playing with some questions, and we did send some questions to Bioware and to Jon. So we wanted to make sure that everything was kosher, and that we had questions that were going to be hopefully insightful for the community, and hopefully they are. And of course, if you know what we're talking about, we're of course talking about the Anthem Universe Discord. So you can check that out at discord.anthemuniverse.com to join the conversations, have the chat and whatnot. But of course, Binary, we were looking at some questions that we lined up in the list there. I thought maybe we could kick off with a couple of those.
Yeah, I guess this one's actually a little bit more around your past. Because generally you always go up and have a little look around and see sort of what makes the history of someone. And I came across the fact that you did political science and government back at the University of Utah. And then now you have this illustrious career within video gaming. So I guess it was what made you want to do that as a degree, and then what made you what in your life made you jump into video games?
What were you thinking?
What a strange bohemian journey that has been. Honestly, at university, this was after I completed my active duty with the U.S. military, and I just wanted to go to university and study something that I was interested in, and political science at the University of Utah gave me the opportunity to study history and philosophy. So that was.
Hello, Daddy. What do you need this one?
That's awesome.
He's getting raided.
Apologies.
No apologies necessary. That's what makes the world go around right there. That's awesome. So anyway, Binary, to answer your question, hi. It was just that's why I fell into that course of study, just because that's what interested me and allowed me to indulge in curiosity.
Yeah.
And so and then the journey from there, I was working part-time as a customer service agent for a software company that developed financial software. And I just kind of was working there while I was in university, and just started to go up in the company and became an interface designer after customer service, and then was working as what they call a contextual designer for another software company and doing enterprise software, which I quite enjoyed. But we all got laid off one day.
Wow.
I know, right? I was really enjoying that job too. I was like, oh, damn it. But a good friend of mine was working at a Microsoft studio at the time, said, hey man, we're working on this cool thing called the Xbox, and I think you'd really dig it. You should come work with us, make games.
And
so I said,
literally the job.
yes, I'm in. So no, that was cool. And as soon as I got there, it was like, oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be.
That's a hard conversation, isn't it? Really? I mean, oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
No worries.
Make games. Oh, all right. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
So in that transition, then you know obviously you've been working for some time with Bioware now, and you moved on with the Mass Effect 3 Citadel DLC that we referenced before, and you know you worked on Cars and Toy Story up to that point. So digital medium had been obviously part of your DNA really since Microsoft. Can you tell us about Edmonton Corn? Because I really like I struggled in 2017. You guys, some people might not remember this, but way back in 2017, there was a beautiful trailer dropped, a wonderful piece of media that Bioware dropped about Edmonton Corn. And Binary and I were extremely perplexed. Could you explore a little bit about...
Yeah, well, you know, when you think
what
about
was that?
The medium that you really want to express yourself in, I mean, obviously corn jumps right to the forefront of your brain, I'm sure. Gaz, I don't know what you're thinking. No, it's kind of funny. There's this great corn maze that's up here in Edmonton, and they have a very high-tech way of doing this. They always cut interesting designs into it. They do it for Halloween, and it's just kind of a big local thing. And our studio GM at the time, he's a great guy, and he's very community oriented. So he's like, hey, you know what? We're going to do this year. And so we did it. And it was just kind of one of those fun things that you do that's local and silly and just kind of fun.
Oh,
and it's delicious. And it's delicious corn. Yes. Come on, Brian.
So did they actually grow it all from scratch?
Yeah. Like, so they have this thing, and it's, I don't know all the details of it, but it's software operated. So they plant the corn in the shape basically that it programs in, and then as it comes up, it makes this really cool pattern. It's actually super high tech and interesting.
So, it's funny. I work in IT, but I do a lot of work with farms around IoT and the Internet of Things, and the automation and the amount of IT that actually goes into farming now is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's nuts. It was surprising to me. I was like, because I was picturing in my mind, right, like a farmer's out there planting the corn. He's got like a blueprint, and I'm like, how does he do it?
Standing on a ladder.
But, right? He's got like all these people out there doing stuff, and he's up on this platform surveying. But now it's all software. Damn it.
The scenes in that were great because there was I don't know who wrote the script, but maybe was it you, John? Did you write it or
no? I think that was one of our community managers. That might have been Sean Trainer or Tonal. Yeah,
because it was something like and to create an experience and a journey for a game. What else can you think of but corn maze?
True. It's true. And Neil Thompson, our director of art and animation at the time, he was hilarious. He was epically looking at that piece of corn. It was just really silly and fun to make.
Yeah, I think it was great. It was a great community joy because I think at that time you probably didn't have a lot of engagement material. You weren't sort of ready to release a lot of that information. So it was a nice little tease to say, hey, we're doing something. The Rangers out there in a cornfield. Enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy. Bon appetit.
I think it also showed off quite a nice aside to what the studio must be like to work in. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, BioWare, there's a great studio culture here, and it's fun and it's fun loving, and it's supportive of the community and supportive of just kind of being hosted here. Edmonton's a great city, and so yeah, I think it is a nice reflection of our culture, and we never try to take ourselves too seriously.
No, definitely.
Well said.
Portrayed that.
Nice.
And on the back of that, I think we saw in recent months last month at least, the PAX panel, which I think was it was interesting. We had a lot of people in the community at the time sort of mentioned, they weren't discovering new things, and Bo and I were, hopefully we're trying to emphasize this point, but the panel actually explored lots of interesting tidbits and conversations, and we got the sense that everyone up on stage was, it felt like they were really enjoying it. But we couldn't help but note that John Warner wasn't there. So first of all, was that refreshing, not having to be up on stage? And how do you think the guys went?
So yeah, I mean, it was at the time I had just done Gamescom, and then I went over to Indianapolis, Indiana, and did a big show for the GameStop managers. You know, they would gather and about 5,000 people there, and we talked about Anthem for a while there. But in the space of that time, I was on 12 different aircraft in the space of 18 days. Wow. And I got horribly sick at the end of it, as you might imagine, as you're breathing all that recycled air and going through all this stress of travel. So yeah, it was nice to have a breather. You know, Mark was kind enough not to make me do yet another thing, and so I got to rest for a bit while the rest of the crew went and did PAX, and I thought they did a tremendous job. I thought they were great.
So did you watch it from the comfort of your office? Or?
Yes, I watched it from the comfort of my bed as I was hacking up along. But yeah, it was great.
It was a very good it was really enjoyable to watch. Yeah.
I think they did a really nice job, and Nick Terreby, our Halleck, he's really funny. He always makes me laugh, so that was good.
He must light up the sound studio because he was lighting up the stage.
He has a really big personality, and he's very fun-loving, very young at heart, and yeah, I think he's amazing. I always admired his work. I enjoyed him on when he did his TV stuff on The Expanse, and of course in Pacific Rim 2. So yeah, it was cool.
I know. I love him. A very bombastic personality indeed. And of course, at the panel, now this is what sort of sparked our interest. At that same panel, Mike talked about Anthem Fridays. And that sort of become a little bit of a curiosity, I think, in the community. I guess what's been your favorite part of Anthem Fridays, and what's the favorite part there, and what's the most intriguing thing that you've seen come out of that?
So Anthem Fridays has been a really interesting practice for us. You know, if you can think about sharing this type of game experience like concentric circles. So, you know, you start out and you're sharing it with a very small group of developers. You're not even sharing it with the whole company yet. And then you slowly widen that out and you share that with the whole studio, and everybody at Bioware gets to play in that. And, you know, then across both Bioware studios as the team size grew. And then, you know, that's when we started the whole, you know, idea of, hey, every Friday we're just going to sit down and we're going to play together for an hour as a studio group and just have a good time and look at what we're all doing. Because with a game that's the size of Anthem and a team the size of that we have, it's really easy to get siloed and just look at your tiny piece of the world and say, oh yeah, this part is great, and you're not so aware of what's going on in other teams. So it's a time to get together and share and celebrate and look at what everybody's doing across the team. And the most interesting thing that's come out of it, honestly, is that's where this idea of Anthem moments. I know Mike talked about that a little bit, but this idea of, oh, here's a thing that happened to me while we were playing the game that for me really encapsulates what Anthem is all about. And you know, hearing those stories, people after Anthem Friday get together and we're talking and sharing stories about adventures and things that happened, and you know, sometimes crazy bugs or defects that crop up in the software. You know, it's all good. It's good storytelling.
Excellent. And yeah, it's you're right. We don't think as gamers, and I'm not sure if the whole community would agree, but I tend to think most would, that we don't think of a game as being, you know, we all work for companies and organizations with divisions and demarcation and all those things, but we don't actually think that a game is being developed in 20, 30 different parts, and that you don't even get to see that, you know, a UI designer, for example, you know, is not going to see that output until Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's
fascinating.
It can be a very strange thing. Is like the first game I ever worked on as a producer was Dragon Ball Z Sagas. And you know, that whole team, my whole team, to include me, was I think maybe 20 people, maybe less.
Wow.
And you know, when it's that small, everybody sees everything, and you're all sitting in the same room, and you're all talking, and you know, you're putting things together, and it's great fun. Everybody sees everything all the time. But yeah, when you're at a team size that crosses over, once you cross about 100 people, it gets really difficult to see everything and for everybody to know everything that's going on. So yeah, it's crazy.
So what is the design process? How much of a challenge does it actually have, being that you're split across obviously Edmonton and Austin, and then obviously you've got other supporting studios as well? It must those Fridays must really help congeal sort of the teams together and have those shared experiences, 'cause it must be quite disparate in terms of the information sharing, and communication must have to be extremely strong, but it must be challenging to be able to get things done and reach and be on the same path, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I cannot overstate this point. When you're doing any sort of development, software development across locations, and that crosses date lines and things like this, it gets incredibly challenging. And when you're making a piece of entertainment that needs to be delightful and fun and interesting, not just functional, it gets even harder. And you know, we have a staff of really hardworking people who try really hard to make that communication work, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, super challenging. One of the most challenging things I've ever done.
Especially when you've got a crazy guy from Australia and Britain trying to go, hey, can we talk to you?
Hey,
I'm making a game here. Come on.
No, that's all good. That's all good. It's really nice to be able to take a brief respite from you know, the craziness of day to day, and then sit back and talk with you guys and talk with people who are just interested in the game and what we're doing. And so that's always the fun bit.
Yeah, I get the vibe that you have that sort of, you appear at least to have that authenticity that runs across from what you talk about and how you present the game, and then how you talk to people publicly. I think with that, I guess that's probably a feather in your cap in terms of how the team operates.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. You know, we try to be. I'm a big believer in transparency and authenticity. And you know, whether I'm doing an interview or just talking with fans, or talking inside of the team, I think it's really important just to be as open and honest as possible. And you know, it's a journey, and we're all on it together. Whether you're a player, a fan, a developer, an executive, you know, we're in this together.
Awesome. Landscape has changed, and I think we're going to change gears with that as well, because it's time to dive a little bit deeper into some of these questions. No doubt people will be curious about some elements here and some things we can and cannot talk about, but I'm you know, more interested in the things that we can explore together. Binary, we were talking before about the conversation of Tarsus, of Fort Tarsus itself. You know, it's often been referred to as the hub of the game. Tarsus, the hub of Tarsus, and we've talked about the Citadel and whatnot. So did you have there was a question that we were talking a little bit about this earlier this morning.
Oh, right, yeah. So Tarsus as a hub, right, is you know, Gaz and I have talked to it sort of reminds us of slightly around Mass Effect Citadel, right?
Yeah.
But what can we expect to be from Tarsus itself? Because obviously you talk about story as being delivered in real time, which means it's it's going to change as obviously we go and play through the game. Is that always going to be the same as once you've completed the story? Is it going to carry on, or?
Yeah. So interesting. There's a bunch of interesting points in there. I'll try to tease this apart a little bit. So the purpose for a hub, in our view and in my view, in any game, whether it's Dragon Age or Mass Effect or Anthem, is that it does a few really nice things for you. In Anthem, when you have this pace of play out in the open world that is very energetic and very high energy. lots of combat, lots of movement, lots of decision making that you got to be making all the time, moment to moment. And then when you complete that and you're able to come back to Fort Tarsis, it changes the pace, right? It allows you to bring the level down. You can kind of take a little bit of a breather, and just it breaks up the cadence of your play, just very mechanically speaking, which is always very helpful. Then, as you saw in the PAX panel, this is the place where we are delivering a lot of our story. It allows us to show you the consequences of your actions. It allows you to feel like you as a hero, even in a multiplayer world that we all share, are having an effect on things and are, changing people's lives in certain ways. And so that's important, right? And so what you can expect from a hub, any Bioware hub, honestly, but let's talk about Fort Tarsis in particular, is this is a place that is going to be explorable, right? We've shown you some different looks at it from way back in E3 2017 in the marketplace area. There's a freelancer enclave and HQ, and the fort goes deeper back. And it's a place that you can explore around. You can find things and learn more about the world, collect some history, figure out what's what, who's who, talk to NPCs and pick up what's going on in their lives and make some decisions inside of there. And there's some really cool, really interesting story moments that happen just inside of the arc of the people who live inside of the fort. And that's really important because you want to feel connected to these people, right? Your whole job as a freelancer is to protect these people. And if you don't care about them, it's really hard to feel any sort of emotional high, like, oh yeah, we did it. We protected the fort, or we rescued this person. You have to kind of give a shit, right? And so forming that emotional connection, and this is where I think Bioware games do historically a really nice job, is not so much in the plotting of our stories, but in the development of our characters. So it gives you that opportunity as well, right? So, this is what we've tried to do a little bit differently with Tarsis as opposed to, say, the Citadel or Skyhold. Is we want it to be a little bit more approachable, a little bit more accessible, so that if you're a more action-oriented gamer, or you're just in the mood that night not to sit and dig through the history of the world and talk to different NPCs, what you really want to do is complete missions, pick up a new mission, rearm, re-equip, and get back out. I want to make that really easy for you to do and not have to be feeling like you have to wade through a lot of content to do that. On the other hand, if you are a player who loves doing that, who a real lore addict, or really want to spend time with these characters, I want you to have the freedom to do that too. And that's why Fort Tarsis is a private zone. There's not a bunch of people in there. You're not getting that social pressure of come on, button through this scene. Let's go back out. This is your spot. This is your space. You can take your time here or not. And that freedom is something that is central to the development of Anthem.
See, that fascinates me actually, because you clearly spend a lot of time on Tarsis to build out enough characterization, enough depth within obviously individual characters or group of characters and different NPCs to create an experience that you would want to spend hours of your time going through and finding all the different mysteries and understanding people. What made you guys want to take that direction of storytelling, say, different to some of your other games where it's delivered as part of the actual main campaign or main story?
Right. That goes right back to the basis of us wanting to create a more social game, a more social experience, something that, like Casey said it really well in his latest blog. We've always made multiplayer experiences. It's something that's always interested us as a company. And so, leaning into this idea that, hey, there's a whole world that we're going to share, and doing stuff like syncing up time of day and the weather events and things like that. So even though, you know, the three of us, Gaz, you're in Australia, Viner, you're in Britain, and I'm up here in Canada, we could all still feel like we were experiencing the same world because all those things are there.
Yeah.
And the next day when we're on Skype and we're talking, we can talk about, you know, the weather. And even if we weren't playing together, we were just playing, we would still have something in common, right?
True,
and that commonality of experience, you really can't underestimate that. It sounds so simple. It sounds so simple. And yet at the same time, it's these little things that make it feel like a real shared experience in a real place. And that was very intriguing to us and drove a lot of these decisions.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that excitement of being able to do, you know, the weekly weather report. Like, it's going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, we're going to have a digital board. Like, this is what's going on in the Anthem this week. And, you know, what are the shapers up to? What's going on?
Yeah, and I think that we've got some surprises up our sleeve there for you. And, you know, I think that it's going to be something that people will be talking about.
Do you think that Bonner and I have talked a lot about this because of our, you know, our history? We've worked together a lot on Division content in the past and some Destiny as well. But we talked a lot in the very, very early days of how this conversation is a unique marriage because you're you know, introducing you know, looter shooter fans who have become familiar with the MMO light environment along with the traditional Bioware. Do you think that is Tarsus kind of like a metaphor for you to be able to give service to the traditional insights of Bioware fans and to you know, bring them on the journey, but then also to be able to talk to this new genre, so to speak?
Sure. You know, I think it does that. I don't know that was necessarily the base motivation for what we were doing. I think that, you know, we were looking for ways to tell stories to a broad audience and to bring a lot of people along on the journey with us. And, you know, I think what you're saying is right. It is the thing that kind of brings in this kind of wider, broader audience, but at the same time stays true to the core of a lot of our values. So, you know, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. I think that from my point of view, we were pursuing our craft and our values, and that it came to this expression of those things.
Agreed. And speaking of ME, of Mass Effect, the in-game codex for me, Binary, I think for you as well, if I'm right, was pretty, yeah. I spent a lot of my time, let me put it this way, I would suspect that my TV screen got a lot of, in the old plasma days, a lot of burn-in from the codex because it was open a lot. And I'm not saying that it has to be to that extent, but can you give us a little bit of a teaser insight into what kind of expectations we could have from the in-game codex in Anthem?
Yeah, I think that I think you've kind of set the expectation. The in-game codex is our way of, one of the vectors that we have of communicating lore in the world and what this world is all about. And so, you know, having that there and being able to dig through it and live in there as much as you want. Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll be, I said the A word. It's going to be, I think you'll be satisfied.
The A word.
Reading through lore.
And, you know, I think, you know, when you're looking at the type of world that the types of worlds that we create, we start very deep. You know, if you look at, I don't know if you guys are Tolkien fans or not, but, you know, you look at all of the mythology and world building that he did to get to the Third Age and the Lord of the Rings. You know, that's a great way to go about doing it, because then you get all that great internal consistency and you get all of that history. And you know, we've tried our best. Yeah, we've tried our best to build that type of world.
Oh, good.
I actually can't wait to get my hands on it.
We're sitting here going, want to play. Question: what's your favorite NPC character of those that have been currently developed, or that you can talk about, and why?
I said on Twitter a little while ago that my current favorite is Faye, and she's still up there. Her story arc is very compelling to me, and the actress that we got to play her is fantastic. And I love watching her performances. I like the quality of her voice, but I also like her story arc. And I think that there's some really deep, resonating themes in there. And without giving away the story, because that is clearly half the fun, is being surprised by the story. I think that Faye, we play with themes of obsession and themes of overwhelming desire, right? And you see those themes have been playing out, like Star Trek: The Next Generation really played with those themes around Moby Dick and Captain Ahab and the White Whale, and this thing that you pursue at the expense of all else. And there are elements of that in her story, and it's like Nick, the interview we published with Nick on our website, he hit it on the head. These are stories about humans who are flawed, just like we all are, who have problems, who have obsessions, who aren't always good to each other. And it makes it a very human story, and I think it's cool. I like it.
Did you like that? I mean, Kathleen made the reference on the panel, wasn't it, where she said that Faye comes from the Harvard side of the
yeah, she is a cipher's cipher. She is erudite.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the banter between. I love the idea that, as she said, that Owen's sort of community college kind of guy. So we're going to see like the street smart versus the book smart, and I'm going to really enjoy that, I think.
Yeah, I think you will. I really think you will. I hope so. Anyway, we'll see what you say.
So did you actually get to watch some of her performances? Well, because obviously there's video capture, and then there's actually the recording of all the voices. Do you actually get to see some of that as well, or do you only see sort of the after product?
So for those recordings, I didn't get to see those. Parrish Lay, who is our director, or not director, but lead animation guy, he's a wonderful director. He and Caroline Livingstone, they did all of that work. I got to be in on the casting as we looked for our actors, which was really cool. I really enjoyed that. But I didn't get to see the actual performances, so I get to see it as it comes back as raw data, and then eventually as it becomes something beautiful. So it's cool.
Awesome. And we talked earlier about this development idea, and I was going back to when did it all start? And my notes here were telling me 2012. So, wow, like again, that's a career change. That's 2 career changes for a lot of people in 2018.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest, what do you think has been the biggest aha moment? We talk about in the corporate world, the aha moments, but leaving the business talk there, what's the biggest aha since 2012 for you?
No, there are so many. I mean, on a project of this magnitude, and you have to understand, of course, that first year was a lot of just PowerPoint and us trying to figure out, what Anthem was going to be. At the time, it was just Project Dylan, right? We codenamed it, and so yeah, that first year is a lot of exploration and thinking and daydreaming. And honestly, the biggest aha moment for me, and they change project to project, right? So for me, on my journey for this is that, taking a vision for something like a game or a story, and being able to carry that across time to many, many, many different people is extraordinarily difficult. And, it kind of reminds you of the game you used to play when you're kids, right? Telephone, when, you take a sentence and you whisper it to each other around the circle. And by the time it gets to the end, it's purple monkey dishwasher. And it's that, it's that thing. and being able to sit down and talk with people, because everyone's got an idea of what the game could be, right? And even as we're sitting together talking about it and we're describing it to each other and we're talking about it, and everybody has just a slightly different version of it in their heads. It's an incredibly challenging endeavor. It's no wonder new IP is the hardest thing you can do as a game developer. The biggest challenge.
So is that where your role as, and some people who play your game may actually not even know what a game director is, right? So is that what your role is really, is to like make sure that path or the original vision, and as people join the team and leave the team, that the original vision and where it's going stays true?
Yeah, it's certainly part of my job. We have, no one is alone when they make a game, and game director from studio to studio means different things. Yeah, that's part of my job, is to manage the vision and make sure that that's put up there so that everyone understands what we're making. And there's a lot of people who do that. The producers who work for me, the other creatives, the design director, the art director, animation director. We all labor at this, and so it's not something that any one person, I think, can really raise their hand and take credit for. But I think it's certainly a big part of my job.
It's a hell of a football team, isn't it, when you've got so many different skill sets? Good Lord.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It devolves into rugby scrums.
Very nice. Yeah.
Now, for me, I think for both of us, Binary, one of our biggest aha moments that we had was when there was quite a shift there, and we wrote a bit of an article about it, and we got a lot of Bioware staff sort of reaching out to us, which is very exciting at the time, very humbling. And we wrote an article about the tonal color shift. So there was a very distinct shift from the dark space hues of Mass Effect, I called it Mass Effect-esque, to the vibrant gamut that we saw, basically around the time when we first saw Interceptor. So we saw the bright green and we saw blues coming from Storm, and we just saw, there just appears to be a very significant shift in tone and brightness and color and gamut in the game. And I'm not sure if maybe it was just that we hadn't seen it yet, but was there a shift there? And if so, was there a trigger or a catalyst for that? And what was that about?
It was also from E3
2017
through to 18.
Blue through to 18, where it was then
absolutely
white and bright colors.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things going on there. One is that for the first bit of a project, what you're really thinking about is the mechanics of it. How does this all work? How do all the pieces fit together? And getting it just up and running. And so the attention that you pay to the nuances of color and brightness and things like that can sometimes take a backseat, or they're just not up front. Giving it a backseat isn't the right way to describe it. It makes it sound less important. But a lot of times it's just not the thing that's up front in everybody's face. So there was that piece of it. The other piece of it was, we hadn't really developed our key art yet. We hadn't really started thinking about the outward facing tone of the game. And we started to put those pieces together, and that's where you started to get really bright, the bright whites and the very vibrant colors. And as the last, I guess, piece of it was that we really started to gel our own understanding of what it is we were making, and the fact that the Anthem at its heart is very much a superhero game. Right, in that expression of superheroic feats. And so that also lends itself to very bright primary colors, and and it all kind of just starts to come together. And that's when people, even on the team, are like, oh, okay, I get it, I understand what we're making. And working with the people who help us develop our key art, and they bring their own thing to the table as well. And so it's a really interesting and intricate process, but it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just one trigger. It was all of these things kind of in concert happening together.
Interesting. Yeah, we found it refreshing because we again, it was a surprise, but I think it actually worked quite well, as you say, because it actually made it stand out a little bit. It did look less space drama and it looked more
right.
adventure. So I think the brain guys nailed that. There's no doubt about that.
Excellent.
And it was a lot of
Awesome,
work for
awesome.
us. We had to
Yeah,
change
thanks
our
for that.
colours for our website. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, we had these dark space lights and
And then you're like, oh,
grays
dang
and
it.
blacks.
Yeah. Yeah, and we went through our own exploration of all that stuff too. Game development is interesting. It's an evolving thing. But yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's
So Binary, we were talking.
So
Oh, sorry, you
I
go.
was just going to say, actually, it was probably a question I'd probably save to the end, but game development is an evolving thing, right? It's such a long process, and we're at, 6 years in. Do you find that you're a different person from when you start to when you finish a game? Does the game give something back to you as a person that you take away for life?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Question, right?
Yeah, for sure. It does. It changes you. It leaves its mark on you. Especially a game that lasts this long. There are many mistakes that you make. I know that we all pay lip service, especially, Gas, like you were saying, there's a lot of business speak around, failure is the foundation of success. And, there are a lot of platitudes that are out there around that, but it's true. You make mistakes, you learn lessons, you go through a lot of stress. I know that I had a lot less white in my beard before we started this process, and so it ages you, it seasons you, you can't, if you're paying attention and if you're engaged in this, you can't come out the other side unchanged. You can't.
Do you know what your biggest personal takeaway from the development of Anthem would be?
Oh man, my biggest one. There's so many. There's a lot. I've taken away a whole new education just working on this game with this team. Lessons of communication, lessons of being authentic and true to yourself. That's probably the biggest one. Because I think this is true for everybody, no matter where we're at, in what industry or where we're at in life. There are going to be people who will tell you that you need to change who you are in order to be successful, and it's just not true. It's a big lie. You need to lean into what you're good at. You need to lean into your own authentic self to find where your path to success is, and it's a huge lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I see it now. Yeah, that's true.
Now I'm sort of lost in deep philosophical thought right now.
You're even stroking your beard.
Yeah,
that's the classic.
that's it. I'm there. I'm Aristotle right now. But let's have just a quick fire on a few details. So we've been talking about the Dominion quite a lot, as a faction in the game, and the Monitor has been presented as a leader of the Dominion. Do we know, or are we able to talk about yet? What are the motivations behind the Monitor and his, her? I'm not sure how to phrase it, but what is the motivations behind the Monitor and the Dominion?
Well, the Monitor, he just wants his mom to love him.
Wow, we're going all Freud. Excellent.
Because sometimes binary cigar is just a cigar. Damn it. No, the Dominion. The Dominion is an empire that is built on aggression and control, and the Monitor as one of the leaders of that culture is exactly the same. It is about his idea and their idea as a culture of success and bringing in the good thing in life. And for them that means control. It means bringing everybody to heel and harnessing the power of the Shapers to bring that to pass. It's certainly not about democracy or freedom for those guys. It's not about freedom of expression or, hey man, just go do your own thing.
that drops some of our assumptions. I think Binary and I, when we were talking at one point there about how we might feel sorry for the Dominion at some point, I'm not sure if I feel sorry for them anymore.
Well, it's an interesting thought. I mean, playing with these ideas of, culturally, we see it all the time, right? People and groups of people who think that, well, this is what's best, and I just want what's best for you. So why don't you just bend the knee? Why don't you just bend the knee? Because it'll be best for you. It'll be best for all of us. So I don't understand why you're not just giving in.
Well, it's interesting because there was an interview with Mike Gamble where he said, some of the protagonists, especially which we now know as the Dominion, will have points in their story arc that will make you question whether you actually agree with what they want to do or not. Right?
Well, you guys
scenarios in life like that, right?
Yeah, you do, right? And it's like Avengers Infinity War, right? You look at Infinity War a lot different if you think about it as a movie where Thanos is the hero, and it's a movie about Thanos. Yeah, and then you're like, oh yeah, well, it was a great success. Dude won. Yeah. And to me, telling stories that have that type of texture that make you actually stop and think a little bit and go, oh, I don't know. Those are much more interesting to me than stories that are just very plainly black and white.
So a big part of these stories that we've been telling is the word exploration. And so the conversation there is we're looking and ducking in and out of cupboards and other elements of caves and verticality and all these parts. Yeah. What's the most intriguing place? Probably a strange question, but we're thinking about this. What's the most obscure or interesting place that you've seen stuff hidden in the game so far?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I was just cruising around in the latest build, just poking around. And
wait. I love it. I'm just cruising around. I love that.
Yeah. Because just flying around, fighting things, finding treasure. Dove down into a channel of water that I've flown over probably, I don't know, 300-400 times. Down in the bottom of this thing, there was this, and way down to the point where I couldn't, light from the surface wasn't coming in anymore. And you get a little bit disoriented when you get down that deep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Down there, what do you know? There's this cool treasure chest. And it's not that the chest had a bunch of cool stuff in it, although it did. But that wasn't the important point. The important point was, you go poking around and you dive into deep waters, or you go exploring up these great heights, and there's something there. There's an evidence, there was a strider, wreckage of a strider at the bottom of this thing. And it was like, oh, well, shit, this is cool.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, there are lots of them. It's, I've said this before, and, people are like, yeah, we get it. But you really won't get it. I'm telling you, you really won't get it till you get your hands on the controller and you start experiencing this world as a volume instead of a flat plane. And you're going to realize that you have spent, the last hour exploring, and you haven't gone more than, say 400 meters as the crow flies from the front door of Fort Tarsus. And that's when the light bulb really clicks on for you, and you're like, oh, because, like, you can fly over something a million times, but when you actually land and walk down there and dive into the water, you're like, holy shit, there's something down here. It's a cool moment.
I think a bunch of Bioware employees just went, wait, there's a cave with a strider at the bottom of it? What? What release was this? I didn't play this.
It's true. There's a lot to find there. There's a lot to find.
Sounds like something for an Anthem Friday.
Indeed.
Excellent. Another quick fire question on this space. When we were talking about javelins earlier, you have been very pronounced with your favoritism for Storm. What is the key element? What's the one characteristic that you would borrow? What is the key characteristic that appeals, that would drag you away from Storm being the favorite?
Yes. So here's the deal. It really does depend on what it is you're doing. There are some circumstances, even though the Storm is my absolute favorite, that I would never take a Storm out into. There are some jobs that call for a collide. There are some jobs that we want that Ranger before. So it's less about attributes for me, because when you go in, and again, coming back to this idea of freedom, and you're building your loadout for your javelin, there are so many different ways that you can build it up that it becomes about your play style and what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to accomplish. So less about an attribute that would take me away from the storm and to something else, more about what it is that I was trying to accomplish that particular evening or that particular session.
Yeah, see, that's what.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. Yeah, that's what actually excites me, is the amount of diversity that is, supposedly we're getting to be able to create a javelin that suits our playstyle. And Gaz's javelin, he could play the storm, and I could play the storm, and they could be completely different.
Interceptor. I'm not playing the storm.
Well, and it's about synergies, right? And that's what makes Anthem. I know that there's a group of folks who just really want to try to play Anthem solo. And that's cool. We're gonna let you do that, but you're missing out on this synergistic relationship between these things, and being able to get with your people and talk about loadout strategies and what you're going to do and why, and then experiencing it in the game. It is magical. It is super cool.
Oh, it's half the fun. I can't wait to start theory crafting.
It is. It's lots of fun.
We've already started, man. We've been theory crafting for 6 months.
As long as I get my great stripes, I'm happy.
Yeah. There's some, and John, I'm not sure if you read it, but there's some great guys in the Discord, in Anthem Universe Discord. We've got a lore channel, and we've got Bad Badger, Moxie X85, boys and girls, people from different countries, and they're all creating their own little mini stories. And one of them was actually really touching. It was about a boy in Tarsus, and the story wasn't about, it wasn't the bombastic hero and the brutal, the energy and the action and destroying the Scar and taking that dominion. It was about a boy in his house with his mother in Tarsus, finding out that he's lost his father out beyond the wall, and what he's doing to deal with life in Tarsus. And I nearly teared up.
That's awesome. I think that, honestly, one of the most exciting things for me as a game developer working on Anthem is that we're finally creating a space where people can actually tell each other stories, where we can tell each other stories together as we play. And it could be a story of an epic adventure. It could be a story of an interaction and conversation arc that I had with an NPC. But we can tell these stories to each other now. And for me, that is the exciting thing. And the power of Anthem at its heart for me is that everybody at some point in their life has felt held down by the man, right? That there are rules that you have to obey, that there are strictures and laws and just social mores that you have to follow. And Anthem allows you to come into a world where you don't have to be constrained. You get to put on a javelin, and everybody else has to stay inside or be heavily protected. And you get to put this amazing suit of armor on and break all the rules and go where you want to go and be who you want to be. And it's very uplifting, and there's a lot of freedom there. And so when I think about the world of Anthem, I often think about, to bring it back to your point, Gaz, from the point of view of young people who are in Fort Tarsus, who are constrained and have to live these lives, but who can dream about and then become people who get to go beyond and go further.
Yeah, it's super exciting. As I said, there's plenty going on out there in the world of story, lore, and is that even theory crafting? I think NGEX, Binary, good old NGEX in our community, he talks a lot about different theories around shapers and all sorts of stuff. So we'll be certainly sharing some of those elements on the Anthem Universe YouTube. So check out, of course, at Anthem Universe on Twitter, and you can follow us and keep in track with things that we are speculating, of course, at this point. Some things we don't know about yet, but this sort of makes part of the fun for us. It's actually more interesting, isn't it, Binary, when we actually don't know, because it allows our imaginations to run wild.
And
that's awesome.
like little kids in Tarsus.
That's awesome. I love it. And, to everybody who's out there in your community, thank you. thank you for your interest. Thank you for your passion. Keep doing it. Keep writing stories. Keep imagining, and hopefully soon we'll all be telling stories to each other.
Right on, right on. And of course, a big part of storytelling is getting contracts. We like getting contracts. And in PAX panel, we found out that there's going to be contracts from the agents. Are these contracts, do you know if we can talk about those? Are they randomly generated? Are they sort of limitless in design in that they sort of keep reciprocating and refreshing throughout the game journey? Or are they, how do they work at this point?
Yeah, the repeatable contracts that you can get from the agents, they have elements of randomness in them, so that they're different. You never know exactly how they're going to be put together, and how many and what sort you're going to be facing. So it's a fun way to do repeatable content, and it's a great way to generate a lot of XP. Missions are a great way to generate XP when you're out in free play. That's a great way to build up your crafting materials and just kind of explore the world. Yeah.
Awesome. The biggest challenge. So in all of this, I think we're going to start to wrap up on the last couple of questions here, because I know you probably want to go and live normal life for a brief moment, or go back and check work emails, one or the other. I suspect.
Yes, I suspect it's the latter.
Yeah, I hear you. And so you tell us, what was the biggest challenge that you think? I mean, that's a big question, I know. But in 2012, since production, what's been the biggest challenge? Was there something that sort of went that threatened to really put a pause, or you had to really get innovative and quick, think quickly about things?
That is a big question. I think there was a big moment of inflection where we were trying to find our way to what we have now, what would become Anthem. And if you think about game development like crossing a big river, or maybe even a big lake, any big body of water, where you set off. And once you get into the middle, and you can't see the far side, and you can't see the side that you started from, and now here you are out in the middle, it's easy to lose your way there, and it's easy to lose your sense of what you're trying to do. And getting through that middle bit is the toughest part, especially on a big, long project. So honestly, that was a huge challenge, and that's where I think we finally hit this big turn. It was a good thing, but it was a moment of anxiety for the team. It was a moment that was very difficult for all of us, but I think it turned out well.
Binary, you talked a lot about, remember back when we found out the dedicated server conversation, I think you had sort of curiosities about that. Do you recall, was that a big aha moment for you when we found out that the dedicated servers will be there, and that this would have this kind of dynamic environment? Did you have any reflections on that from our conversations?
Well, yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was just the fact that it was a shared world. But the fact that you could still have, the biggest moment for me was that it was still the story would be told to you as an individual rather than as a collective. Because a lot of games and a lot of studios, they spend a lot of time trying to figure out, or what they do is they make you play the game, and you have to play with someone else, and you'll share at the same time, but usually your friend will fast forward and you'll miss some of the story and stuff like that. So the biggest thing for me, and I have a huge love for Bioware games, so I have done for many, many years. So the fact that I'm going to be able to experience Bioware's story, but share a world with my friends, that was my biggest moment. Yeah, I was really excited about that.
No, that's awesome. That makes me happy.
Yeah, I can see people jumping in, going, "Oh, look out for the shape of storm at the northeast." You're like, "Oh, it's going to become like an event," or everyone's going to go, "Oh, let's go have a look."
Yes, go have a look.
Go have a look. So, a couple last questions. What games? I mean, we know that Diablo. You've talked a lot about, very proudly, of course, of Diablo in terms of its influence with loot. Is that the primary motivator? What other influences have you seen in since development that have really sort of helped shape Anthem?
Yeah, this is actually probably one of the most difficult questions, and at the same time the most simple, because I could point to individual games, that influenced progression, or my thinking on different things, or the thinking of our design director on different things. But to tell you the truth, the real answer is that Anthem is the expression of years of consuming games and science fiction movies and novels and comic books, and it is all of that. And you could go in and say, well, yeah, the Diablo progression and the way that they chase horizons was very instructive.
Yeah.
But that's just a tiny slice of the real answer. The real answer is much bigger than that. And there's Tolkien in here. There's Robert Heinlein in here. There's Stan Lee in here. There's Marv Wolfman in here. There is so many influences that I think as creators and storytellers, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and Anthem is no different.
Now that was a sweet answer, wasn't it? I think everyone just sort of went, "Oh my god," because it's everything, as you say, that we do. We read comics and we watch movies, and a lot of our lives have been built on some of those elements. So I think it's somewhat simple, but very a comprehensive way of thinking about it.
Nice.
So I picture this, a role play for you, John. Here's a role play. You're at the helm of a extraordinarily, potentially world-breaking, successful, wonderful, brilliant, extraordinarily successful game, and you've just hit alpha. So the question is, what's next? What's in the journey ahead, and what can we expect to see over the coming months as Anthem approaches gold status and a final release in February?
Well, so for everybody outside of the studio, you can expect to start to see more things. We want to do things like set up some live streams that just give people more access to what we're doing and more visibility into what's going on here. And of course, we'll have big marketing beats as well. So lots of things to see and to hear. Inside the studio, of course, this is where the really hard work comes in, of landing a project of this size, bug fixing, tuning, polishing, finding those last bits of things that we screwed up, and trying to fix them and make them right. That's an ongoing journey, and we'll continue that journey well into live service as we then start the conversation between all of us into what you want more of and what you want less of, and doing stuff like that. But that's kind of the arc that we're on. So a lot of cool stuff coming up for to see, for you guys to see, and then just a lot of hard work and heads down for us here at the studio.
I'm excited. How
Right.
do you feel, Bonner?
I can't wait.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you very much
speechless.
for having me. I appreciate it. This is awesome. You guys have been great.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you. We appreciate your community. Thank you so much. Without our players, we are nothing, and we are very, very aware of those things. So thank you very much, honestly, from the bottom of our hearts.
Thanks, John. Very, very humbling. Yep. It's a very reciprocal conversation. So thank you so much. Of course, we can keep track of Anthem at the EA website. So make sure you check the at Anthem Game Twitter to keep abreast of things. And of course, the EA website is very, very interesting because it provides a lot of little tidbits of knowledge and information that gets missed, I've noticed. So do go to that site. Do check out some of the profiles of the Javelins and so forth. It's certainly been an inspiration for a lot of our conversations over the last few weeks. Binary, where can we find everything all good Anthem Universe?
You can go to anthemuniverse.com. You can join the Discord at discord.anthemuniverse.com, and you can find us podcasts on pretty much every podcast service.
Nice.
It's called market saturation. Thank you, Binary. John, thank you. As I said, I'm Ogaz. You can reach us, of course, at the Anthem Twitter, as we said, which is at Anthem Universe, and, of course, the Discord, as Binary mentioned. We look forward to having some impressive conversations in the coming weeks and months as we come closer to launch and we find out more beautiful, gorgeous, wonderful information from the team at Bioware. John, thank you kindly
Thank you, gentlemen. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Strong alone, stronger together.
Javelins, we will see you next.
Over the wall.